You ever find yourself not really having time for God, meaning that you don't have enough time in the day to pray. You don't have enough time in the day to just pause and to just hear and think that there's so much going on that you don't have time for God. Well, that is where I found myself many different times, including recently, because of all that has been going on in my life. And I want to talk to you about what has been happening as a result of not making that time for God, and then how in the world I'm getting that time back. Welcome to the You, Me, and Jesus podcast. On this podcast, I share all about my experiences growing up with God, growing into the calling that God has had on my life, and experiencing the supernatural. When you're listening to this, you're going to hear from me as well as many of my friends talk about all the experiences we have with God. Some of the things you're going to hear are going to make you go, "What? I cannot believe that happened." Other things are going to make you cry, and some things are just going to make you laugh. But you're going to hear all about how we experience God. The goal of this podcast is to help you hear God clearer, get closer to God, and experience all of the supernatural. And so thank you so much for listening to the You, Me, and Jesus podcast. So welcome to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, where we talk about all things you, me, and Jesus. If you're here, I am so glad that you are here. I would love to hear from you. I know we put out these episodes every single week, but as right now, I'm not really hearing from you. And so I want to actually know what you are enjoying about the videos here on YouTube or the actual audio podcast. So that way I can offer you more of what you actually love. So today we're having a conversation about not really having time for God. And I really want to talk to you about why that happened, what has been happening in my life and where that would happen, or why I would be prioritizing other things and not God. And then what is it that I am doing to recenter myself with God? So, I've been telling you about moving to Houston, Texas. I've had a couple episodes talking about that. And, as much as it sounds easy to move, it's really hard. It's actually really hard. And if I'm honest, this was actually the hardest move I've ever done with God, for God. Okay. And it's not because he told me to, but it's because of my life's circumstances, at the time. So let's kind of lay that out. So I have moved a couple times through God's instructions. Now, when I moved from Kentucky to Virginia, I didn't know it was God telling me to do that, but I realized later it was him. And so in Kentucky, I pretty much had sold everything, and then I moved. When I moved from Virginia to Houston, I sold everything and I moved to Houston with nothing. And then I bought everything. When I moved from Houston to Redding, California, I sold everything and I moved to Redding. When I moved to San Diego, I didn't have anything because the house that I moved into was fully furnished. And then being in San Diego, I literally bought everything. I had my office furniture, my living room furniture, bedroom furniture, plates, cups, everything. I had all this stuff. Not to mention that all the other moves that I've made because God invited me to, my business was doing okay. I didn't have a team and all these responsibilities and all that. So when he told me that I was going to be moving, immediately I was like, okay, if I'm going to sell everything, let's look around the house. And as I started looking around the house, I was like, ooh, I've spent a lot of money, getting my life to where it is or whatever. Not you know what I mean? And I was like, if I'm going to sell all this stuff, I'm going to lose a bunch of money because it's not going to sell for what I bought it for, And then I said, if I move everything, it's going to cost me thousands, but it's going to cost me way more money to rebuy everything than it is to get movers and all the things. And so I made a decision that I was going to actually get all my stuff moved. Now, there's all the logistics that go along with that of packing up your house, getting help to pack your house. If you're going to hire movies, how much that's going to cost. If you're going to rent a pod, which is what I did, coordinating, getting the pod, getting it at the right time, getting people to help you move everything out of the house into the pod, coordinating when it gets to Houston, all that. Plus, coordinating with the current place that I was living in San Diego, the move out and all the things that go along with that. Then coming to Houston for a visit to find a place to live, knowing that I haven't lived here in 5 years. I don't know the areas, like all of this stuff, and just not really knowing what I'm walking into, right? And then just all of that, plus moving to a different time zone, which is not that big of a deal. But when you have a team, and my team is in the Philippines and India, they've been working with me for years on a particular time zone. And now they are operating a 2-hour difference, so it's a big deal for them as well. And so then my own body, then I have my cats and coordinating and with them and all those things. And they all sound like bullet points in this, video or audio, but it's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. And I'm one person. Like, I don't have a significant other. I don't have a spouse. I don't have mom, dad, sister, cousin. I don't have anybody that is helping me coordinating my entire life. So my brain, I would have to say it was probably on overdrive, because running my business during the day, coordinating all this stuff, and then still having time to sleep, eat, have groceries, do life, take care of my health, take my vitamins, take my medicine, keep my friendships, all of that intact it was a lot. And I won't even downplay like a lot. Like I can't even articulate just how much a lot that all of that was. Then actually driving from San Diego to Houston, 20 hours. Like that's me. I drove, not anybody in the car with me. I drove over the course of 2 days. That was a lot. And what I found was that in that time, I was just on go. I had moments, don't get me wrong, where I was like, okay, I'm good today. It's Saturday. I don't have any meetings. I can spend some time talking to God. But what I found, and even right now, what I have found is that those times weren't as sweet. They weren't as replenishing as other times previously were. I was kind of going through the motions, but also just trying to stay connected to like my best friend, God. And even once I started to drive, I was like, my pastor was like, oh, God's going to speak to you. And I didn't have that desire to hear God. I needed things that was going to keep me awake, right? It's going to keep me alert. And for me in that time of that drive, it wasn't hear God. It just wasn't, and I was getting really tired. So I was listening to all different types of things to help keep me awake. So then once I actually got here, then it was, I don't have a bed. I'm sleeping on the floor. My body's in pain, all this stuff, and trying to figure out the internet situation so I can work, all that. Finally, my stuff arrived and it was like, okay, now we got to get all the stuff in. Now my house is a wreck, right? I have a mattress, but now my house is a wreck. And like going, how am I going to coordinate what's going on with my house, with work and all of that? And just finding myself just being like, I am out of it. I am not as close to God as I want to be. But the truth is, I'm not as close to myself as I want to be, because my house is still very chaotic. You can see some of it here in this video. You can't hear it on audio, but it's still very chaotic. My brain is still trying to like, I call it like a reboot. It's still trying to like wind down from all that it had to do and has been doing for the last probably 3 to 4 months preparing for this. And I just found myself just not being really close to God. Now, I think that God was with me no matter what. It's not like I wasn't doing anything bad. I wasn't in sin or anything like that. I was just so busy with stuff. And it was things that I had to do. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one thing when you're doing things you don't need to be doing and God's going to take care of it. And it's another thing when you're legit doing the things that have to be done, period. And it was like, I was doing all the things that had to be done. And, it was just a lot. And I was just disconnected from myself, disconnected from God. I still am. And right now, what I am doing and trying to do, first of all, I'm giving myself grace, and I'm recognizing that God is still very present with me no matter what is going on. And I don't need to feel guilty about how close I don't feel, because we are still close, you know? I am finding myself saying, because my body's still trying to adjust to the time zone. So normally when I go down at 9:30 or 10, I'm just able to go out. But now I'm like, I'm not really going out until midnight, because midnight Houston time is 10 o'clock San Diego time. So my body's still like, hey, we're not doing that. And so when it's time to wake up at 5:36, my normal prayer time, my body's like, no, we're not doing that. So I'll get up at like 7:30 and it's time to get going for the workday. So I am giving myself grace of like, all of this just happened. All of this is happening, and God is with you and you're okay. But what I'm also doing is the times when I do get to go down and I do go to sleep, and I do get the time where I wake up, I go, okay, let me get some time. Even if it's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. Even if it's me just walking around the house when I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm praying in tongues, I'm like, okay, we're going to do that. You know, I did go to church on Sunday and I could feel God's presence with me on Sunday. I was still kind of like, you know, in my brain, but I still had this moment. I was like, okay, I can hear. Let's, you know, it's okay. It's okay. And then I know on Saturday morning, I don't have anything going on. I'm going to be like, okay, let's spend some time Saturday morning. Like, I'll sleep later, but I'll get up and I'll actually spend time with God. And I'm like, and eventually my body's going to get on this time zone. My house is going to be less chaotic. My brain's going to be less chaotic, and all the things. Now, I will say this, like over the last probably 30 days, my creativity has just been gone, And it wasn't until, was it Sunday? I think it was Sunday. I went and got groceries. And as I was bringing my groceries in, I started hearing God give me creative ideas. And I was like, and so I like grabbed my phone. I just like sent an audio message to my assistant. I just started telling her all this stuff. And it was so great. And it was so helping our business to simplify and all this type of stuff. And I was like, oh, thank God, I can hear God now. Because I just couldn't hear him because there was so too much going on, you know, but it was so amazing to be able to hear him on Sunday. And now I'm just taking it like one day at a time and one day at a time. And I have to remind myself that I'm okay, that we're okay, that he's not mad at me, that he didn't leave me, that this is a time and season in my life where things are just really busy or were really busy, and that it's not going to be like that forever. And I can reconnect back to God in those moments when, you know, in the busy seasons. And I have been doing that. And so I wanted to share that, because I know sometimes when we're busy or when we're not speaking to God or when we're not praying or reading the Bible or whatever, that we can have this thought that, oh, he's mad at me or whatever's going on. But that's really not the case. You know, that he's really just like, it's all good. Like, I'm here, I'm with you. It's okay. But just come back to me, you know, as soon, you know, in terms of like talking to him or whatever. So I wanted to share that with you, because that's kind of the journey that I'm on right now, of getting my life back, like more calmer, so I can be closer, that I'm used to being close with him. But that's kind of where we are right now. And I look forward in like a couple months or so being able to say, okay, me, God got reconnected and this is what's happening and all the things. So this is a short episode. Just want to share that with you. But I want to know what you think about, like, specifically this episode. What do you think about you and your relationship with God? Do you feel close to him? Do you feel distance from him? Do you feel like you're distant from him? What's going on? Tell me here on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, come on YouTube and tell me there. I would love to chat with you. Thanks for listening to the You, Me, and Jesus podcast. I'm so honored and thankful that you have chosen to listen to this with us. What we would love more than anything next is for you to write a review. When you write a review on iTunes or Spotify, it actually helps the podcast be found by more people. So if you can do us a huge favor and give us 5 stars and write a review, and feel free to tell us what you loved about the episode. Thank you for being here. We're praying for you. We love you, and we pray the best for you and your life.